Hi guys, welcome back. It's Waxing On, Monday, April the 5th, 2021. We are in another lockdown here in Ontario and Canada. The US building up for a fourth wave of the epidemic. We're into a third wave here. So sounds like a good time to just hunker down at home and dig out some music. Today we're going to look at the music of Charles Mingus, bassist, composer, band leader. Certainly he's had a varied career. We've had stuff he was doing. If you remember back, episode 21 was our first exposure to Mingus. It was an album under the title with Dizzy Gillespie as the featured artist on that episode. But it was an album that was recorded in Toronto, Massey Hall, and it was a concert put on by a Toronto Jazz Society. And at that time, they brought together 5 of who they thought were the best proponents of bebop. Rhythm section, Max Roach, Bud Powell, and Charles Mingus. Now, they released an album under Prestige. It was called The Greatest Jazz Concert Ever. And it was a 2-record set, 2 sides, 1 album, was dedicated to the rhythm section. So Powell, Mingus, and Roach. The second album, they brought out the front line, and that was Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie. So a lot of Parker Gillespie tunes, a lot of those bebop kind of things, not so much compositions by Mingus, but performance of Mingus. And that group, apparently that was one of the few, if not the only recordings of that group that was ever made, because they were never really a traveling band or a group that got together. They were brought together by this jazz society simply by voting for who they wanted to have as their favorite artists. Over the course of the year, we've featured a number of bands that have played Mingus music. Shuffle Demons, Shocks Johnson and the Jive Bombers, Carla Bley, another one. Actually, at one time when I was working with a youth group band, they were actually playing Carla Bley's arrangement of Goodbye Pork Pie Hat by Mingus. And that's another one that was featured in the Carla Bley segment. Now, today we're going to look at a couple of albums that are more closely related to Mingus. One of them being, this one's called Mingus 1959, Columbia Jazz. And it was one of those discount bin finds I got again. You never know what you're going to find in those discount bins. And this one's great. A lot of what I would say would be familiar songs for Mingus. Better Get Hit in Your Soul, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, Self-Portrait in 3 Colors, A Song with Orange, Gunslinging Bird, The Shoes of the Fisherman's Wife are some jive-ass sleepers. And Please Don't Come Back from the Moon. So a lot of very Mingus-y type titles in there. Now this album, there's a number of different players. They all didn't play on every cut. Some players were only for a few cuts, some played a little more. But it's a great lineup of musicians that performed this music. We got obviously Mingus on bass. Trumpets. Oh gosh, it's a who's who in here. Don Ellis. We've got Joe Wilder, Snooky Young, Randy Brecker, Wynton Marsalis, Lou Soloff, Jack Walrath. I mean, just a who's who of studio musicians that were performing. Trombone players. We've got Ubi Green in here. And some of you may be familiar with Ubi Green if you're I don't want to say a student of trombone, but he never really had hits. He never really was as popular as some of the other trombone players, Carl Fantana, Bill Watrous, Frank Rosalino, but Ubi Green was the trombone player's trombonist. He's featured on here. Saxophones, we've got James Moody. It's really a great section of musicians that came out to perform this. Now, what makes me wonder is I see Gunther Schuller was the leader of the group. So I'm not sure whether this was put together later on. It says 1959 on it, but again, some great tunes and a lot of great performers. And a chance to get into some real Mingus songs. Now, the other thing I just wanted to feature was the last album Mingus was involved with. And it really wasn't his album per se, but an album by Joni Mitchell, a folk singer who came from Canada out west, and Toronto is one of her connections. But she did an album called Mingus. See if I can get that in so you can see it. And this was the last project Charles Mingus actually worked on. And he'd written a number of tunes, wrote the music, and Joni Mitchell supplied the lyrics for these songs. Now, he also had some songs like, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat's on here, so yeah, that's an older song, but she wrote new lyrics for that as well. And there's a number of tunes that were strictly Joni Mitchell songs. To give you some idea of what we're looking at, we've got Happy Birthday, which was considered a rap one here, so almost more of a talk. God Must Be a Boogeyman, A Chair in the Sky, The Wolf That Lives in Lindsay, Sweet Sucker Dance, Dry Cleaner from Des Moines, and Goodbye Pork Pie Hat. They had a couple of bands. They had a sample band where they were trying this out. Just to give you some idea who played on this. This was the New York version. John Guerin on drums, Phil Woods on alto sax, Jerry Mulligan playing baritone sax, Tony Williams on drums, John McLaughlin on guitar. Boy, a lot of these names are going to sound really familiar to you. We've talked about a lot of them. Obviously we had Jerry Mulligan with his own feature, Tony Williams, John McLaughlin with Miles Davis, Jan Hammer's on here, Stanley Clark on bass. When it came time to record it, they changed the lineup a little bit. And the lineup at this point for the recording was, how did I find where you put that here? Joni Mitchell on guitar and vocals. We've got Jaco Pastorius on bass, Wayne Shorter on soprano sax, Herbie Hancock on piano, Peter Erskine on drums, Don Elias on congas, and Emil Richards on percussion. So it's pretty much an all-star backing band she's got with her as well. A lot of great tunes, done a little differently with the vocals. And again, Mingus wrote 4 of these just for this album. Also with the album, and I don't know how this works if you obviously get it online, you're not going to get this. We've got Joni Mitchell's artwork. One shot, a great shot of Mingus in here. I don't know if you bought the CD, you might get these as well, but this was in the original album release. And our final picture, there we go. So some nice artwork went along with it. A really nice tribute to Charles Mingus. I kind of did this as a crossover because while it's all Mingus, we're also going to be featuring Joni Mitchell a little later on with her music, but I didn't want to hold this back because it certainly is a corner point of the music, and again, one of the last projects he worked on before his passing. So lots of places to find Mingus music. He also, since he passed, we had the Mingus Big Band, the Mingus Dynasty that tried to continue on his tradition and his music. But if you look around, a lot of the jazz players, you'll often find one of Mingus's tunes on their albums. Again, I found this great one in the discount bins, but there's lots of great Charlie Mingus music out there. And if you like something a little different, mixing our folk singer as a tribute to him, we've got the Joni Mitchell Mingus album. Okay, everybody enjoy the rest of your week. Find some good music to listen to. Stay home, stay safe, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for stopping by.